Cops of Reddit. A lot of people get jumpy and try to act normal around law enforcement. How can you tell genuinely suspicious people from self-conscious idiots acting weird? And today OP learned the value of the serious tag. I knew a police helicopter pilot and I asked a similar question when searching for suspects. He said that the bad guys were the ones not looking up at the helicopter. Innocent people look, point, stare, etc. I thought it was funny but true, to a point. Pulled over for being lost in the wrong neighborhood. Was relieved as I did not have a GPS at the time. Horribly lost, was hoping the cop that had been tailing me for the last mile would pull me over to get directions. Wants to know why a white boy like me is in a neighborhood like this. I explain I'm lost. Doesn't believe me, says I'm here for drugs. My whole attitude changed because I'm suddenly nervous. Why would he think that, and realizing this could go badly? He says only guilty people act nervous. He ends up calling a K9 unit to search my car. Other cop is really cool. We chat and he apologized for first cop being a jerk. After search he gives me directions on how to get to my destination. Good cop bad cop is real. This issue is actually pretty black and white. Edit 4 months later. Holy all go update Batman. Nearly 30k up boops. Your post reminds me of a funny piece of info. A good friend of mine works as a lawyer for one of the bigger insurance companies in defense. A good percent of accidents happen because people freak out about the mere presence of the cop and don't focus on the actual driving. Like literally during a deposition I didn't see them pull out. There was a cop on the same road. Actual police officer here. Verified in our protect and serve. There really is no magic answer. There is a ton of overlap between both groups and anyone who says they can consistently spot the difference is lying to you. I'd rather judge the situation based on the objective facts rather than my gut feeling. UK police officer here. There is no single factor, but here are a few things I'd look for. Police aware is an expression we use. Like OP said, most people feel guilty and try to act normal around the police, which normally means pretending they're not there. For example, you begin to concentrate on, for example, eating that sandwich to an almost comic extent whilst sneaking the odd look to see what we're doing. And you have the people who stop what they're doing and watch you intently to see if you're coming for them. These are the people who are police aware. Of course, sometimes they're just tourists hoping to take a sneaky photo of a British copper. Mostly it's people whose appearance or manner doesn't fit in. For example, if you go to a busy taxi rank at rush hour and then just casually mooch about rather than queuing or leaving, then that's an odd thing to do. If you walk into an expensive shop wearing tatty clothes and with ingrained dirt on your hands, then that's an odd thing to do. If you walk into a bar, order a drink then leave it on the counter, then that's odd, and probably means you're either passing counterfeit money or pickpocketing. None of these things is illegal, but they're all things that are not entirely normal and would attract the eye of an observant police officer. Don't misinterpret these examples as looking scruffy. That's not what I mean at all. It's about not fitting in because of your context. Not just a sudden bout of I'm normal from someone who clearly has a reason to be where they are. Visible signs of drug use. Sometimes in the UK you'll hear the term heroin diet, but the same would be true for meth in the US. You can spot addicts from a mile away because they have the same look and behaviors. Without wishing to tar all addicts with the same brush. Hard drug addiction and acquisitive crime often go hand in hand, so when I see someone who is clearly an addict I'm immediately interested in them. Lastly, there's intelligence. A lot of what we do is guided by specific knowledge about an area. In some areas I'll be looking out for teenage kids hanging around bike racks. In others I'll be looking out for drug addicts meeting dealers. In others still I'll be looking for bag thieves amongst drinkers. Anyone who matches the sort of person who I'm on the lookout for who also looks jumpy is going to pique my interest. But normal people less so. Sorry it's such a rambling answer. The truth is there are many factors and it just depends. Edit. If you want to try this yourself, just take a look at this video and try and spot the pickpockets. I won't spoil it by telling you who they are. You won't actually see the theft itself because it's obscured from the camera, but you'll know what they're doing because they stand out so clearly. Just look at who looks out of place. If they're looking at the merchandise they're pretending to inspect or looking around the room. How them move around the room. That sort of thing. It's pretty much a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Edit 2. Cheers for the gold. Edit 3. Some people asked who the thieves were. Spoiler tags per the sidebar instructions aren't working for me. So as a workaround, here is a link to the answer. Interesting question. I wish you had put a serious tag on it. Cop here. I'll give a serious answer instead of all the others. Assuming this is on a traffic stop. For the most part, if you are acting jumpy, I try to figure out why and remove that stress. If I can't figure it out on my own, I'll just simply ask. Common answers are, I don't like cops, I don't want a ticket, and so on. My reasoning for this is if you're relaxed and I ask if there are any weapons in the car and your stress indicators skyrocket when you say no, something is wrong. If you're already stressed, I won't be able to see that reaction. As others have stated, it's not 100%. Some people are just nervous Nellies. I try to calm people down for their sanity and my safety, but it doesn't always work. Not a cop, but I'm a Florida native and I'm usually dressed in shorts and a t-shirt. I was in a flyover state for a concert and was supposed to pick someone up about 4 hours away in the morning. Instead of getting a hotel for 5 hours, I decided to drive to my destination and sleep in the back of the rental car. Usually when I do this, I roll the windows down and sleep with the car off, but it was in the mid-30s this night. I pulled into a vacant parking lot next to a vacant building outside of town. Turns out I was still in city limits. I tried to turn the running lights off, but wasn't able to. This eventually attracted the attention of the local law enforcement. I woke to a flashlight banging on my window. They, all 9 of them, wanted me out of the car while they tried to figure out what was going on. Being as it was cold, I started to shake. I shared how I thought it was amusing that I was shaking and that it would likely raise suspicion. The cop that was babysitting me at that moment said no, it's cold out. She then let me get into the car and start it again. 9/10 would recommend. Cops can't even tell if they're in the right house. I'm one of those jumpy people. I've been pulled over and screamed at, why are you so nervous? What are you hiding? And another time, the cop was very nice and just said, relax. It's just a ticket. Are you okay? Do you want to catch your breath? Not a big deal. Take a couple deep breaths. Buddy super friendly and helped me relax. I get anxiety in those situations without any real cause. I just get really nervous. It's crazy how differently cops can handle a situation in the exact same circumstances, just one was nicer or trained better. I got pulled over for speeding on Canada Day on my way up to Ottawa from Toronto. I did the usual routine of pulling over somewhere safe, taking the registration out and putting both hands on the wheel at 10 and 2. The cop approaches and I ask if it's okay for me to reach over and turn down the music, which I forgot to do. He starts laughing and says okay. He tells me to put my hands down since I'm making him nervous. I'm like, you're making me nervous. Back in Toronto I don't take any chances and the cops are usually appreciative, but they have never told me to relax. It's best to err on the side of caution with Toronto police, but the out of city cops are usually pretty laid back. We had a good old Canadian laugh, wished each other a happy Canada Day, and then he gave me a ticket for 115 in a 100. Sigh. Edit. I was caught going 125 km/h in a 100 km/h zone. The cop reduced it to 115 km/h. Police instructor here. You look for what is out of place context. If everyone is looking at an event or certain direction and that one person is staring at you or in the completely opposite direction, that's the oddball. People draw attention to themselves by behavior that is different from the environment or expected of the environment that they are in. It's how they identified the Boston bombers. Everyone was looking in the direction of the explosion, but the brothers were staring in the opposite direction. Suspicious behavior. This technique can be applied to clothing as well. If it's summer and you see people wearing heavy jackets, there's something odd. Somebody keeps tapping the waistline and there's no reason for him to do that, like something falling off of it and there's something tucked in their waistline, drugs or weapons. Now, not saying that this gives you an excuse to go up and start harassing people, however it definitely lets you narrow down the focus of your attention for what is out of place. Everyone is different, but usually the nervous people will be polite and apologetic. Suspicious people will act more agitated and annoyed. If you'd like real answers on the topic, ping our protect and serve cops on they have been vetted, and those who have gone through the process get flair noting they are real cops. So you can pass up on the bullet answers. Edit. For those whinging that the sub restricts anti-cop comments and has a pro-cop leaning. Done. It's a cop sub, where real cops offer answers and discuss stuff. If you want edgelord teens itching about cops being evil, there is the whole rest of Reddit to turn to instead. Not a cop, but having worked at a pawn shop, I will say they talked way too much. When the customer was trying to pull something on us, most would talk a lot about nothing. Keep up a constant stream of chatter. Of course this is in no way a 100% indicator, but it was one sign we looked for. The funny thing is, if I'm off duty and around a uniformed officer I don't know, different depth, area, etc., I get nervous. Hell, my heart sometimes skips a beat when I see one of our own cars driving down the road, even though it may be the same exact vehicle I was assigned to just a few hours ago. My point is, I think pretty much everyone gets nervous around a cop. Most people will avoid you and not make eye contact. But what really stands out for me are the adults that will periodically look at you, or you feel them staring at you like they're trying to ID your face. I've had to arrest a lot of people over the years, and many of them are back out on the streets. There's a bit in Bryan Cranston's book where he talks about his time as a security guard. His talent was spotting about to be shoplifters. His advice? People come to stores because they want something specific. In and out. Watch for the lingerers. On the flip side, stop parking your ducking cruiser below the crests of hills on expressways. You are causing more traffic problems and dangerous situations than you will ever solve. Accidents are caused by sudden changes, like when, oh I don't know, idiots see a cop and slam on the brakes, and differences in traffic flow, not by speeders. Good cue. I never feel I act normal around cops. Funny thing is, I have two close relatives who are cops. When I act normal around them, they tell me I should respect that they're cops. Sorry, does this illegal activity that we are both participating in doing bother you all of a sudden? Just look at the police manual. Suspicious people are black. I don't put much consideration on someone's nervousness to the likeliness of them committing a crime. We need reasons, or probable cause to determine that. However, someone's jumpiness is a tactical cue to me that they may more likely run or fight. Especially if I already have probable cause of a crime occurring. Most people are scared when stopped by the police, but this fear is different than jumpiness. Fear is a little more subdued than the tension of someone looking for an escape. Another consideration is that if someone suffers from a mental illness, their symptoms are usually clearly different than someone who is plain scared or jumpy. Also, someone who is affected by drugs clearly has distinct signs. It's pretty complicated to explain, but simple when observing it in person every day. Cops once woke me up at 3 AM in the morning because my neighbor saw flashlights in woods next to my house. And then they started questioning me, asking me why I seemed so nervous, and if I wasn't doing anything, why were there footprints in the snow in front of my duck-eyeing front door. I was a 19-year-old kid living on my own in a small town, so small it didn't have a population. I just remember being absolutely flabbergasted at why they would want to know why someone might be nervous from getting a visit from the cops in the middle of the night, and why they thought footprints in a heavily traveled area were suspicious. I basically told them some variation of that and then told them they were welcome to look around outside if they wanted before they left. This was during deer hunting season in Wisconsin, so the only thing I could think of is that maybe they thought there was some poaching going on. Still, it showed a remarkable detachment from reality that they couldn't understand why I was so nervous to begin with. If you're nervous, you're a criminal. If you're not nervous, you're a hardened criminal. I love how everybody in this thread is being a gigantic asshole to each other and not answering OP at all. Edit. And when somebody does answer, the edgelords descend on them. Every time I get pulled over, as soon as my tag is run through the system, the police get on their bullhorn and tell me to get out and lay on the ground. Not because I'm black, because I'm a 2-time convicted felon, been crime free for 6 years, but I always find it amusing, and after all the foolishness I always have a laugh with them. Javal FL. Bang, bang, he asked suspiciously. Officer felt threatened so shot him 39 times. Just to be sure. Now to sprinkle some coke around and put a gun in this 8-year-old hand. Great question. I'm a cop in Arizona. It's important to know the cultural and societal norms of your patrol area. A huge amount of folks carry guns here, for example. Your average law-abiding citizen will generally use a holster and not be deceptive about the weapon. Bad guys will not be forthcoming. We have some issues with Mexican drug cartels, and they tend to blend in somewhat, but have guns in unique calibers, such as .38 Super. Since we do have a huge Hispanic community, it helps to know the norms for their behavior, which differs somewhat from the white community. A vast majority of the time we will be dealing with people while investigating specific crimes. There's a huge variety of factors involved in that, but generally speaking you are gonna use 4 of your senses to make educated guesses. Sight, smell, touch, sound. A person whose voice wavers may just be afraid of cops. Combine that with an odor of drugs, or a suspicious protrusion on their body, then there could be an issue. While cultural knowledge is important, there are some universal signs of deception, which you would probably recognize. I spent a year in Afghanistan doing police work as well, and those principles held true there too. To a degree it's profiling, which is a dirty word, but a pragmatic principle. And questions. Fire away. I have anxiety. Every time a copper pulls me over, I look guilty. But really I'm scared of unwarranted police violence and nervous about how much money today's ticket will cost me. Police always notice, and they always say that makes me suspicious. So they have reason to ask to search me and my possessions. I feel like I can't be the only innocent person in the world who gets the jumps around police. But they always act like I'm the first person they've ever encountered who acts guilty when I haven't actually done anything. I'm cop. If the most criminal act you are committing is possession of less than 28 grams of cannabis, I officially don't care. If you're speeding and otherwise driving like an asshole, but you're sober and are active and valid, here's your copy. Keep your hands where I can see them so I know you aren't a threat and we'll both sleep in our own beds tonight. I'd say a lot of it comes from experience. Why do you ask? Got something to hide? You don't mind if we just search this area of yours, do you? UK veteran and ex-Metropolitan Police, UK. Here, I've just found it's all down to experience when reading people. Your mentor is everything and should be a wealth of knowledge. Learn from them. Also, the weirdos tend to be regulars and someone will know them and tell you all you need to know. Edit. The regulars will be in an intel database somewhere, so any safety issues should made aware to you from control. This includes known aliases. Random story. So not long after I got my license I was driving around and at a stoplight there was a cop behind me. I hadn't done anything wrong. Cops at that point didn't freak me out yet, and I even knew a kid in school who was planning to become one. The light turns green and I go. I notice behind me everyone is behind the cop on all lanes. It weirded me out. Usually there are cars passing me or next to me. People were giving the cop a nice wide berth or at least not wanting to drive ahead of it. It made me feel paranoid and I checked my speed. I was actually going slower than the speed limit. After I figured out everyone was just being paranoid I sped up to the speed limit and that was that. The cop was driving slower than the speed limit and I drove off leaving them all behind. I feel like the cop probably thought it was hilarious that his presence was slowing down traffic cause it wasn't like he was trying to control it. His lights weren't on. Since then I've had plenty of speeding tickets. Plenty, but not on that day. Cops freak me out now too. Every time I see one I go oh it. Speed limit? I'm okay. Car functioning right? Yes. Drugs in the car? Wait, I don't do drugs. It's a tense situation. You shoot them all and let God sort them out. Seriously though, my uncle is a sheriff and he said one of the biggest giveaway is people who try to be subtle, but their actions are completely different from someone who has nothing to hide. For example, if they are busting up a party, an underage drinker will nearly immediately set their drink down and push it away about 6 after they set it down. But pushing away isn't something you normally do. For anyone outside the US, these comments are literally insane. There should be zero fear of doing something wrong at a general traffic stop. Unless that something is picking up a clearly visible weapon. The fact that you need to be coached on the right thing to do not to get shot is a ducking joke. Last night while I was driving, I got to a red light, stopped next to a cop. I paid him no mind. He slid his car forward about a foot. I glanced to my left. He has his head tilted down facing my direction. He gives me this dirty look like he was trying to see if he recognizes me from somewhere. It felt kinda weird. Usually whenever I see a cop, I'll give them a nod. A downward nod. Not like when I see a friend or somebody I know. That's when I give an upward nod. I can't explain it, but to me there is a big difference between the two. To me it feels like an upward nod is like saying, "What up?" or even a challenging acknowledgement to a stranger. A downward nod is more like a neutral acknowledgement, to greet somebody with respect. Some people don't know what to do when they are pulled over. Having been pulled over myself, what goes through your head? I'm gonna be late for work. My wife is gonna be pissed. Then, you start scrambling for your license and registration. If you happen to have it in your car, which you might not, call me an idiot. Go ahead. You take off your seatbelt for comfort. The radio is still on because you're so flustered. As the cop approaches, he can see your hands moving around. He can hear the music. He can see your body move down to the passenger's seat as your whole body fades out of view. This is all innocent to you because you're just trying to comply and get out of this ticket if you can talk your way out. But what can the officer expect? That said, my experiences were different from videos I've seen of others being shot at traffic stops. I'm a white male in the suburbs of Chicago. I think we're kidding ourselves if we say that doesn't make a difference. Let's say cops get the training they need. Let's say drivers do everything they know to do. Do drivers know what cops are taught to expect a driver to do? How can drivers know what cops are taught? It's not on the driver's test. Beyond potential racism, I think this is a fundamental disconnect that would benefit us all. Obligatory I'm not but from what I've gathered, reading people is a good way to get permanent retirement, so to speak. That's why you are going to see cops be all stony and cautious around pretty much everybody. Basically, whether they are nervous or calm, they should be treated the same. Doesn't mean you don't take note of behavior. It's just judging someone as being safe just because they are calm is one good way to get killed. Homicide detective here. Nervousness is not a sign of guilt, it's a sign of nervousness. Everyone responds to different situations differently and some people get nervous around cops no matter how innocent or guilty they feel. I've watched other cops argue the point that a suspect must be guilty based on their nervous behavior, so I know some cops think that way. I think it's usually newer officers, stupid officers, or officers who have less experience dealing with people who think it's a good idea to link nervousness with guilt. I wish I knew a way to teach other cops that nervousness is a poor indicator of guilt and should never be included in forming suspicion. But every cop is an individual human being with human flaws and personal opinions. One of the ittest things about this job is watching some cops be bad at their job. Here in the UK it's considered perfectly normal to exit the car when being pulled over by the police. How would this go down in America? Anyone who runs is a criminal. Anyone who stands still is a well-disciplined criminal. I take issue with you calling me an idiot. OP. If you want to avoid edgy teenagers spouting their hate for authority, try the serious tag next time. You should add a serious tag so that the joke answers don't clog up the top comments. It's a good question. From what I recall in one of my psychology classes, your average cop isn't able to identify lies any better than a random coin toss. If I recall correctly, the US Secret Service are the only ones that produce good results at detecting deception. Am I the only one who gets shaky around the cops, even if they aren't being threatening? Am I the only one? LPT. If you know someone is watching you and you don't want them to be aware of it, pick your nose. It signals to them that you are sure that nobody is looking at you, because nobody picks their nose when someone is looking at them. I got this from Reddit a few years ago. So why are you asking OP? Got something to hide? Like a few pounds of hard drugs? As a police officer I have become accustomed to people acting differently in my presence. Whether it's on the road or walking down a street or shopping mall, I've noticed that everyone has a different response to walking by a police officer. Some people will avert their eyes and walk a little faster, others will go out of their way to acknowledge me, giving me an awkward smile and a wave. Some however will start acting jittery and furtive, moving their hands awkwardly, looking in all sort of directions. If there is nothing to point to the fact that they committed an offense, I try to act very friendly and let them know I'm here to help and look after their safety. I'll give them a big smile that lets them know that, hey, we are on the same team. Unless they're black, in which case I'll shoot them. Other than that, I just try to remember that a law enforcement officer can cause nervous reactions from people, and I shouldn't take that as a sign of wrongdoing.